Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, The Single Life. Let's watch.
Online, she wanted to meet me. When I first saw Darcy's pictures, I was like, wow, she's really cute. But it was a little different when, you know, she came to the airport. Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow. She was not the way I expected.
Ouch. So, okay, but I don't know. Is this, so I'll use this as a jumping off point. When we go through a breakup and it's difficult and we look back, our narrative can actually change what actually happened. Where if you've been through it, for all y'all out there, think about a past relationship where, it was significant. It was an ongoing, deep relationship that had a lot of conflict at the end, and maybe even you just never even wanted to see them again, or I don't know, just a lot of hurt feelings that were, ongoing. And you might look back at that relationship and be like, so I'll ask you this question: why did you fall in love with that person, or were you in love with that person? Some of the times what will happen is people will say, no, I don't know if I was ever really in love, or I was too young to really understand love, or it was just convenient. It was a relationship of convenience, or I don't know why I was attracted to that person. Was it that I just felt like I couldn't have anyone else? And then if we took a time machine for those people and went back in time and actually asked them in the middle of that in love feeling as to, are you in love? They'll be like, yeah, I'm in love. Why are you attracted? Oh, there's 100 things as to why I'm attracted to this person. So what happens from that moment and later is we remember things through our emotional filter. And when we hate someone and have a lot of hurt feelings from them, everything gets filtered through us. So you're looking through the lens of that on the beginning of the relationship. You're like, I couldn't possibly have been in love with that person. So what was it then? It must have been this other thing. So I don't know if that's what's happening right now. The other thing is we'll keep track, because we haven't seen Jesse in a long time, and we'll get maybe a chance to see a little bit more of him. And the possibility here is that we'll see glimpses into his personality. And someone actually hypothesized that they're from Europe, and they were saying that the parents, the mom and the stepdad, the way that they looked, the physical presentation that they had, to them, to the viewer, someone who came from the sort of hippies, raver style in the 80s and 90s. It was a very free love. Think like in San Francisco, United States in the 60s. A lot of very permissive parenting, a lot of drugs, a lot of chaos, and who knows, there's a lot of speculation in there, but it's possible that Jesse grew up in that environment. And if you grew up in that environment, you obviously are potentially being exposed to a lot of really harmful things: drug and alcohol abuse, neglect, chaos, conflict, looking like there's something wrong with you in comparison to the broader society, being ashamed of your family. And it would explain, this is pure speculation based on extremely limited information, but if that were true, it would explain a lot, if not all, of his presentation, that because he seems to be very interested in how he comes across to other people. Everyone's that way. I'm that way. Like if I'm having a bad hair day, which I'm, on the verge of having, I might not make videos because I don't want bad hair day images to be out there in the world. And, and I try to wear a nice shirt, a button-up shirt. So everyone's like that, me included, or at least most people are like that. So there's nothing inherently pathological about image management, but there's a possibility that he's particularly into it, maybe as a defense against the way that he felt he was when he was young. He felt maybe ashamed of the way he was being looked at and the way his family was being looked at, and really wants to come across in this very different way. Because the way he presents, he doesn't present like someone who came from a hippie childhood. You know what I mean? We don't even know if he did, but the other thing that it might explain is the very much of the upsettedness that he seemed to exhibit about her alcohol, about Darcy's alcohol use, that, you know, he might have grown. I mean, I hypothesized that even at the time, without knowing anything about his childhood, was he seems to be really focused on our drinking. I didn't know at the time. I was like, well, maybe that's justified because we're not there with Darcy's drinking. But what we saw, it didn't seem like it really justified that, particularly the way he was going about it. You know, it seemed very forceful and intense. It'd be one thing to be like, hey, you know, I kind of don't like it when you drink that much. You know, it's fine. You can make a request like that. But the way he came across, it was like, Darcy, you are an alcoholic. There is something wrong with you. You know, it's pretty dominant. And Darcy was just like, okay, fine. And if I remember right, she agreed to like never drink again. And when they broke up, he's like, you're an alcoholic. You know, it's part of his schema that he sees the world through. I don't know. There's also a possibility, you know, in that world of being neglected and having to build up a grandiose veil to trick the world into believing that you're a worthy human being when you believe you're not a worthy human being. I don't know. It's interesting to think about. Let's see what sort of data we get as we watch.
Oh my God.
But this is not an engagement ring. I thought me and her could build a life together, but I went to visit her for a week in New York, and I realized pretty quickly that I had to go on a different path. I'm going away from you. I'm going to call the police.
So you would hope, for his sake, that whether he talks about it on the show or not, that he could look back at this time, particularly with the video evidence, and say, "Ooh, I was at least, you know, 30% to blame, if not 70% to blame for the problem." But that's not how he frames it. He frames it very carefully. He says, you know, I look back at that time and I, you know, went to New York to meet with Darcy, and I quickly realized I wanted to take a different path. You know, what would have been more reassuring to me as a viewer and someone who I guess cares about him and his future and those around him, that he could say, yeah, I went to New York and we had a lot of conflict and I thought a lot about it. I went to therapy and I realized that I have some issues and that she triggered in me, and it brought out a side of me that I just did not like. Ultimately, I thought Darcy was not the right one for me, but it also had me learn things about myself. And that's one of the best things you can say after a breakup is, you know, I learned things about myself. I saw a side of myself I didn't really like. And, you know, they triggered things in me that I realize now are there, that I can cover up when I'm not in a relationship. But when I'm in a relationship, it comes out of me. Let's see if he can say something like that.
No, it wasn't like that.
Louis Vuittons at me? My face?
At the
Are
floor!
Keep drinking, Darcy.
Really? I don't
Hide
drink
problems.
You don't love me. You never did, you liar!
So this is a little asterisk, but I thought back then they were Louis Vuittons, because I remember I'd never heard of those kinds. There's a shoes. Let me Google that. Yeah, Christian Louboutin. Is that a thing? But it sounded like Louis Vuitton. But when you read the you know, translation, or you know, when they print out people's words, what do they call that? Subtitles. It said Louis Vuitton, but I thought it was the shoe. I thought it was a shoe that was being thrown. Louboutin.
Pretty quickly that I had to go on a different path. I'm going away from you. I'm going to call the police.
No, it wasn't like that.
Louis Vuittons at me? My face?
At the floor!
And I believe the first time they actually had it right in the subtitle, but this time whoever did that, they might not have seen that original scene, so they heard, because it does sound like Louis Vuitton. I remember thinking, why did they say Louis Vuitton? Am I I don't know if this is worthy of me asking you comment below, but anyway, I'll just point that out.
Keep drinking, Darcy.
Really? I don't
Hide
drink
problems.
You don't love me. You never did, you liar!
And I'm reminded of the bravado that he exhibits during the breakup. There was never an ounce of vulnerability. Have we seen an ounce of vulnerability out of him? And that should always be a red flag. If you never see an indication of vulnerability and softness to someone, you know, insecurity. If you never see insecurity from someone and they seem like they're totally self-assured, it's usually the opposite that is true. The more someone comes across like they've got it all figured out and nothing ever rattles them, the more likely it is that on an ongoing basis, they're in a constant state of insecurity and being rattled. So that would be my suspicion with Jesse, but I don't know. Maybe he's that one person on the planet that truly has it all figured out.
Get out of my life!
I felt really bad, but I also blame myself, right? Maybe I didn't do my due diligence or asking the right questions, right?
So it's interesting. It's interesting to watch this show so many hours and hear different narratives from people. And, you know, because clients will speak differently to me. It's not often that I hear this kind of narratives being told, but we've heard this before is, okay, and from Darcy in particular, looking back on a relationship and seeing, wow, that was a disaster. Where, you know, maybe I'm to blame. And so I was like, oh, okay, maybe, you know, maybe he's learned something about himself. And then he says, maybe I didn't ask the right questions. Well, that's not learning something about yourself. That's saying, I should have been more of a scrutinizer. You know, I should have been more picky. And, you know, that's exactly what Darcy says. She looks back on relationships and instead of saying, you know, what can I learn about myself? What happened there? What was my part in that problem? We've never seen that from Darcy, have we? And I don't think we've seen it from Jesse. Now, we don't know that much about Jesse, so maybe he'll exhibit that. But we just saw an evidence of that. It's like, oh, you know, yeah, what a disaster that was with Darcy. Maybe I was to blame. Maybe I just should have been, you know, I should have been more picky. I don't think that was the problem.
It is an illusion, right? It is an illusion. But I'm glad that it went the way it went because I kind of needed these experiences to be like, hey, what do I really want?
Hello.
Yeah. Boy. So I'm glad I went through that experience because it made me say, hey, now I realize what I really want. Instead of, what did I do to, you know, she was very hurt by me. What did I do? Even if it was inadvertent, what did I do to cause Darcy to be so hurt? She cried a lot. What did I do? I wonder. Instead, it's, yeah, I've just refined what I want. All right. Well, that is for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.